Welcome to DEF CON 3. I'm KT McFarland. The deadline of June 30th is quickly approaching for the U.S. and its partners to reach a deal with Iran over its controversial nuclear program. Some diplomats, they're worried that these stalled negotiations will prevent a final deal. And others are worried about what would be in a final deal. Well, here's reaction from Clare Lopez of the Center for Security Policy. Clare, thanks for joining us. Let me ask you, is whatever is in this deal, number one, is it verifiable?
No, it can hardly be verifiable, and that's basically cooked into the deal itself. You know, there are three parts to a nuclear deliverable nuclear weapon program, and that's the enriched uranium, it is the warhead itself, and the missile delivery system. And on each one of those, from what we're hearing out of the talks, the U.S. side has capitulated to Iran, and in particular, because there is no requirement that there be any time, any place inspections of any site that the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, wants to check. There's no way to verify the agreement if one is reached.
Okay, so if there's no way to verify it, then you're not going to know if they're cheating. But let's assume somehow you did know if they were cheating after the deal was done. Is there a way of enforcing the agreement? Is there any way of punishing them or incentivizing them for keeping a deal?
Well, as you know, the IAEA itself has no enforcement capability, and the only way that it can bring a violation to account would be to bring it up to the United Nations Security Council. That is the same P5 now negotiating away, capitulating on every key point of the negotiations right now.
So what are the other countries in the region? They're looking at this and saying, okay, we see even if there is a deal, we're not buying it. We're not believing that Iran is going to stop its nuclear program. Talk me through what happens, say if on day one we sign the deal, what happens on day two?
Well, it starts way before the deal is signed, if one ever is, and that is the very real danger of regional nuclear proliferation. We already have heard reports for more than 10 years already that the Saudis had been talking with the Pakistanis. The Pakistanis, of course, the ones who gave Iran its first head start, blueprints, technical knowledge, centrifuge parts, to get its nuclear weapons program started back in the 1980s. And we hear that Saudi Arabia has been discussing with Pakistan some kind of an arrangement under which the Saudis would have access to a nuclear deterrent or a nuclear bomb capability to counter the Iranians.
One of the things that's not part of this deal is Iran's support for terrorism around the world. How would a nuclear deal with Iran affect that?
Well, not at all. Just as you say, KT, the Iranian support for jihadist organizations like Hamas, Hezbollah, its decades-long cooperation with Al-Qaeda, its support for the Houthi rebels down in Yemen, its support to the Iraqi Shiite militias now in taking so much of a dominant role inside of Iraq. None of that is part of the talks. Not any of it is allowed to be discussed, as are many other things not on the table. Iran's missile program, Iran's human rights abuses against its own people. None of that up for discussion.
Clare, let me just ask you one final question. Is no deal better than this deal?
Yes, no deal is absolutely better than this deal. This deal needs to be dumped. It needs to be stopped, and Congress needs to take up its responsibility to review any deal that might come across, that might be signed, and to turn it down, to sign, to make sure that the United States does not accede to such a deal as we see shaping up from all indicators right now.
Okay, so then that leads to one final question. Can Congress stop this deal?
Yes, Congress could stop it. Technically, according to the agreement reached in the House and the Senate, the Congress has now given itself authority. It's sort of in reverse, but it needs a 2/3 majority, a supermajority in the Congress to turn down a deal, and that's what they must muster. If the Obama administration and the Kerry team sign an agreement with Iran that concedes on all of these points, enrichment, warhead, missiles, no terrorism, accountability, human rights, American hostages being held in Iran, if all of that is left conceded to the Iranians, it is Congress's responsibility, yes, and their ability to vote this deal down.
Okay, well, thanks so much for explaining all of that. Clare Lopez from the Center for Security Policy. Check out foxnews.com for more on the Iran nuclear talks. And I'm KT McFarland. Thanks for watching DEF CON 3.